Hi, my name's Naomi and welcome to my YouTube channel. This week I am going to be chatting to you about something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking to you about our mummy meditations that I do on my blog, The Organised Life Project, with Rachel Riddler, Mum on a Mission. Now, mummy meditations is like a Christian way of developing your Bible knowledge and your understanding and your relationship with God, but it doesn't require a huge amount of time commitment. So the idea is that we take one verse at a time and we just think about it. All week we have, like I have, one of the best things that we have is like we have a phone lock screen, and I see it every time I look at my phone. I think about the different words throughout the week. We discuss it in our lovely online mummy meditations community. And it has honestly been, in nearly the year that we've been doing it, one of the best things to help me grow in my faith and my understanding of God. Now, at the moment, we're in a series called In Her Shoes, which is a series looking at women in the Bible. And this is the first section that we've done, and we have chosen Eve. So quite a big one to start off with, seeing as she is the first woman in the Bible, and also obviously she is the woman who brings sin into the world. So there's some amazing passages that we've looked at, and I just wanted to kind of summarise what we've looked at and what I've learned through doing this, and share it with you. So in week 1, we looked at Genesis 1:27, which says, "So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them." So the things we took out from this was that, first of all, God did it. You know, we were created on purpose. Deliberately he chose to create mankind, both male and female. You know, women weren't a mistake or an afterthought. We were created on purpose. And the second thing that we came up with this week was that we are made in God's image, and that was pretty mind-blowing. I think, like many women, I spend a lot of time kind of listening to that negative voice telling myself, oh, I need to lose a few pounds, or I'd look better if I had a better haircut, or, you know, if I apply different makeup, or if I could spend more time at the beauty salon. But actually, we are made in God's image, and God's been continuing to speak to me about this. You know, all of us, no matter what size, shape, colour, you know, everything, we are all made in God's image. And thirdly is kind of linked to that idea that I mentioned in the first point, that we are not an afterthought. Women are not an afterthought. Mankind is not an afterthought. We are made purposefully and intentionally. And I just found that really exciting. You know, women, the female, every single woman in the world is made purposefully and intentionally. Week 2, we moved on to Genesis 2 verse 8. And this is the second creation story, the second story which deals with the creation of humans. So it says, "The Lord God said, it is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a suitable helper for him." And we started off talking about how it was not good for man to be alone, and how in our society there are lots of people who are alone, and that's not healthy. So community is really important. We all need relationships, we all need friendships, that we should be actively seeking out those who are alone and who are lonely. Then we looked at this phrase, a suitable helper, and that was quite an interesting one. So suitable meant that we were absolutely, women, and Eve was made absolutely with the purpose of helping Adam, with keeping him, with being his company, with being his, you know, his partner, his equal. And then we looked at this word helper, and there's quite a lot of discussion around this in our Mummy Meditations Facebook community, because we were talking about the fact that this idea that a helper seems like an assistant, someone who isn't really that important. But actually, when we looked at the translation of the word, it's the same word as is used for God when God is our helper. And that really kind of shaped how we understood this idea of helper. Then in week 3, we looked at Genesis 2 verses 22 to 23. Then the Lord made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man." Now, the things that I took out of this verse was that they were firstly from the same flesh. So they were not made up of, different patches of earth or different patches of mud or whatever it was, clay. They were from the very, very same flesh. Secondly, that Eve was with God first, and then God brought her to Adam. And we discussed in our Moment Meditations community how Eve, she had that time alone with God, with probably God looking down on her and being really pleased with what he had made, and before taking her to Adam. And then finally, Adam says, "This is now bone of my bones." And some of the translations of that, "this is now," actually translate it as "at last." That idea of that at last, finally, this is what I've been waiting for. And that idea of, again, her having this purpose, her having this equality with him. Week 4, we looked at Genesis 3 verse 6, and this is the fall. When the woman saw that the fruit of the tree was good for food and pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining wisdom, she took it and ate it. She also gave some to her husband, who was with her, and he ate it. Now, Rachel has written an amazing post called "Stop Playing the Blame Game," which I will link to in the notes below. She talked about how, yes, Eve ate the fruit first, yes, she gave it to Adam, but Adam was with her. They all ate the fruit. They both ate the fruit. They were both punished for it. They all, including the snake, all committed the sin. And she also talked in that post about how sin with good intentions is still sin. So Eve saw that the fruit was good for food. She saw that it was desirable for gaining wisdom, and she desired those things, and really they're not bad things, but they were going against what God had commanded, and that was what was bad. Then in week 5 we looked at Eve's curse, so God's punishment for Eve. Genesis 3:16 says, "I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labour you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." This was a hard verse to explore, mostly because of that final bit that your husband will rule over you. But first of all, we looked at childbirth, and this idea of childbirth being with painful labour you will give birth to children. So I've been through childbirth twice. Yes, it is painful, but interestingly it's a pain with a purpose. We also looked at, in our community we found it useful to look at the curse that Adam received, and that's about him having to work hard on the land, and that word labour is the same, and it's that idea that there's a purpose to it. Perhaps that's not originally how it's meant to be. Well, it wasn't originally how it's meant to be, but there is a purpose to the pain. Okay. Then we looked at this, "Your desire will be for your husband." Now, this desire is not a good, desire in a marriage. It is the idea that Eve wanted to rule over her husband. She desired to dominate in their relationship, and not only that, she didn't desire God in the same way. She desired Adam, so she looked to Adam for her affirmation, for her purpose, rather than God. And that is our struggle, isn't it? So yeah, I thought that was quite an interesting one. Then we moved on to this, "and he will rule over you." And I had to really question this. It really made me question, could I worship a God who made women become the property of men? And I struggled with it for a little while, and then I thought about Jesus. And I thought, you know what, Jesus, he was a feminist. He spoke to women as equals. They were a massive part of his ministry. And, you know, I think when we look at it that way, men and women were originally created to be equal. And it got me to thinking that, you know, as we move towards equality, and hopefully moving towards an equal society, where women share in the work that the men do, and you know, we perhaps bring about that equality. Perhaps we are moving towards, you know, God's kingdom here on earth. So I thought that was quite an interesting perspective that I haven't really thought about before. And finally, this week we've been looking at Genesis 4 verse 1. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." And honestly, putting myself in Eve's shoes here, I can't imagine how terrified she was, knowing that she was going to have to give birth, and knowing that God had said he would make her pains in childbirth very severe. And going through those first experiences of pregnancy and childbirth, and then parenting, with no one else around her except Adam, and just having to rely on God, and I think wow, you know, really I feel incredibly sorry for her, really. But she says, with the help of the Lord, and it makes me think that she had really then had to rely on God in those times. And I thought, finally, interestingly, she says, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." And she doesn't see Cain as a baby or a little boy. She sees him as he will be in the future, a man. And, you know, I think quite often we forget to think about and to pray for our children as they will be as men and women. And so that was quite a good reminder for me to pray for my children, for the men that they will become. I have loved studying Eve. I've got so much out of it. I think, you know, in terms of my identity as a woman and our identity generally as women, as Christian women, I think she has been an amazing character to start off our study. We're going to carry on the series of In Her Shoes, next by looking at Noah's wife, and then moving on to Sarah. So if you would like to join us, I will put the link in the description box below, where you could sign up either for the emails or for the Facebook community, or both. And I will be back in a few weeks' time to talk to you about what I've learned in the next step in the series. So my name's Naomi, as I said at the beginning. I'm from the Organised Life Project. I would love it if you could subscribe to my channel. Just hit the little red button which says subscribe, and you will get my videos in your news feed. I try and upload every Thursday. I don't always make it, but that's the plan. Okay, so take care and God bless you.